Hello and welcome to Voices of Westerly, a new podcast from the United Theater featuring conversations, many of which are recorded in front of a live audience, with the creative and professional individuals who make Westerly, Rhode Island such a unique and inspired community of leaders, innovators, and artists. I'm your host, Tony Nunes, Artistic Director of the United Theater, here in the beautiful downtown arts district of Westerly, Rhode Island. The Voices of Westerly series is inspired by Westerly photographer and artist Josh Behan, who created a Faces of Westerly portrait series, which we premiered here a couple of years ago at the United and is now on permanent display and rotation in our halls. Voices of Westerly live discussions will take place monthly in our post-credit scene event space here at the United. In this episode, we'll be talking to Annie Wildey, local artist and owner of Air Gallery and Studio. Enjoy the show. So this is Annie Wildey.
A little bit of branding here.
Leaving her mark all over Westerly. So I'm going to start with the same line of questioning that I started with Donna, and I start all of these, and I don't think that you were born in Westerly Hospital.
No, a little further afield.
Little further. You have a little bit of an accent going on, I noticed. So what is your Westerly story? How did you land here, and when?
I guess I officially landed in Westerly at the beginning of 2020. Prior to that, I'd lived in Mystic for about 8 years. Prior to that, I was on the North Fork of Long Island for 2. And then prior to that, I lived in New York City for about 18 years. And then I was born in Wolverhampton in the UK. But I left Wolverhampton after university when I was in my early 20s. I sort of say I ran away from home to New York City. But so I moved to Westerly full-time in 2020. I was in sort of a transition in my life that many of us find ourselves in, on the brink of divorce, and found a really cool apartment in Westerly, other side of the tracks. And while I was living in Mystic, I'd had a studio at the Velvet Mill for 8 years, and decided to consolidate, bring that studio home, which was really fortuitous because a month later, COVID hit. So I was in a really sweet spot, cozy at home with a home studio in this great new town that I was really excited to be in, but it was closed. So
Did you know much about Westerly prior to that?
Well, when I first moved to Mystic, I was looking for a studio space, and I drove through Westerly and thought, wow, this is such a cool town. You know, back in 2012, it was still kind of sleepy. The United hadn't happened. The co-op was still here in this space. It was kind of quiet, but I liked it. You know, I loved the architecture. It had the library. It had the park. So, although I didn't find studio space there, it was a little seed planted in the back of my head. And then I had an artist friend that had a studio called Above Elite out on Beach Road. So I would come here probably once a month, because a few of us would get together. We had a little art salon, and we'd chat about our work and about our creative lives. And so I was always coming to Westerly. I just didn't live here. So
you had a kind of creative community that you were already a part of before coming here.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little about the creative community here in Westerly now. Donna in our previous interview was just talking about having people to bolster and, do more for the visual arts here in Westerly. And I would say, just to fast forward, you're doing a lot of that right now with an arts crawl that you just started, 2 months ago, right?
Yeah, I think May was our first arts crawl.
So
official arts crawl, yeah.
What is your take on the art scene here in Westerly? Now that you're in it, you're not only a part of it, but you're one of the driving forces behind it and kind of pushing everybody to collaborate and work together in a way that nobody's really kind of pulled that together. What inspired you to do that, and how's it going?
I think, first and foremost, it was, very like selfish reasons, because I was, I had a home studio and I missed having, contact with the public when I used to have a studio at the Velvet Mill. And, I knew that the United was going to be a space that was a real centre for the arts. And so I was craving that outside contact with the public. And then it just so happened that, you guys offered me a show last summer in this space. And so that gave me an opportunity to, paint on site and make it more interactive, like a residency. So that was really cool. And I met, some more local people, like, Mark and Dee Dee. I think they'd recently just moved into town. And that was exciting, to have that new cool space. The co-op's been here for years, which is, has its own community. And, I was like, I wanted to find a space or have an outside studio again. So I was looking around, and there was some empty storefronts and some empty studios on the second floor, and we looked at several of them, but there was this sweet little spot opposite the co-op, and we're like, wow, how cute is that? It's just the right size. And Michael, my partner in the space, we were like, I wonder if that would work. So we did a little nosing around and digging, and it turned out that what we thought was going to be a pop-up for like a few weeks over the holiday period has become a little more long-term. We signed a lease and did some renos, and then we opened in December. And I think for both of us, the space was kind of an experiment. We knew there was an art scene in Westerly. We knew there was some, enthusiasm to revitalize it again with, people like Mark and Dee Dee. And I knew some other artists that had studios in buildings up on the second floor, like hidden away. So, I knew there was a lot of potential. And I think both of us just hoped that we could bring some vitality again to it in ways that we didn't really know at the time. We were just sort of winging it to some extent. We thought it would be quite a versatile space, like a studio for both of us to work in, but because it had a storefront, it could also be a showcase. So when we first opened, we did, a big sort of show in a small space of both of our work, and we got a friend of ours who formerly owned a gallery in Newport, and we asked her to curate the show for us to sort of make it somewhat democratic. I think it was just we were like so like up here with like the space that the thought of actually curating the show was just going to tip us over the edge. So we were like, Shari, come curate the show for us. And she was super excited for that, so that was great. And then, again, for the holidays, I invited my friends that, I do the salon with, and invited them to come and do a pop-up in the space as well. So, and it's evolved, over the months. It's, we've had shows with other artists, we've shown our own work, we've been just experimenting. And then I think really the art crawl formally came about when, we were talking to Mark, and I just started to show work in his space, and we were like, we could do an art crawl. I bet we could. We could, couldn't we? And so we both spoke to artists that we knew, and it seemed like everyone was in. And so we were like, okay, let's make it happen and see if we can sustain it for however long we can.
Did you know that this is considered the arts district of Westerly?
Well, you told me that, which was like
this
great.
Canal Street around Railroad Avenue was deemed the historic arts district of Westerly years and years ago, before there was really much arts except for the theater down here. The theater might have been the catalyst, I don't know. But it's now there's so much. You have this place, you have the Nick, you have your gallery, the Artist Co-op, It's just
the music school
the
here.
music school.
There's so much synergy.
Even the
here.
Savoy, which sadly recently closed, and I'm hoping comes back to life in some way very soon. That space too is a great space for literary salons and things like that. So it's just a really vibrant corner of Westerly. So do you find that the arts crawl has been going well, and you're getting a lot of people popping into all of these locations, and word of mouth is spreading? And you are a great marketer as well. So I must say your marketing arm for kind of pushing these through every month is kind of remarkable. And I think we've lacked someone championing this kind of thing. People have tried this over the years. I've been in Westerly forever, and I've seen this. We had an arts nonprofit it was kind of a collaborative of all the arts nonprofits in town that kind of eventually dissolved and dismantled. So many people have tried this, but I don't know, you seem really
aggressive,
dialed in. No, not aggressive. You're dialed into it, and you have a very good sense of how to market it and how to make it feel cool and fresh. And attract people to it, which I think is exactly what it needed. So we're all excited about it, everyone participating, and I think it's because of your efforts and energy.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, as I was saying earlier, I mean it's it's self-serving for me as well. But with everything, I think the rising tide lifts all boats, and when everyone's involved. And you're working collaboratively rather than in isolation, then everyone wins. We all know people, we all have friends, we all have extended communities, and then more and more people come. And I think it's great for some of the art studios that are up on the second floor. I mean, they really don't. There's no open studio here, so they rarely get people to come into their studios, and so. They can hop in and hop out whenever it's convenient. I mean, each month it's a rotating list of venues. There's no pressure, but maybe what is working is because it sort of started small. We didn't have this big committee. It was just like, shall we do it? Mark said, let's do it. And so I'm like, okay. And so I just, and with Michael, we put our sort of marketing head on and just like whipped things out. I mean, it really isn't, I can't say that it was like strategic or planned. It was just, each month, I do something a little extra.
Yeah.
I add more and more to the mailing list. I, update the website. We might be changing the signs a little bit. So it's really evolving. And it's, I like to think of it as inclusive. I think it works for the art venues. It also works for the businesses. I think a lot of the businesses are staying open late because the art crawl happens. Although we don't primarily feature the businesses, some of the businesses are, having an art focus in their venues that night. So, and anyone who wants to join in, it's totally open. I mean, I've reached out to the library.
Yep.
I know they only stay open till late on Fridays, but we still list them because they have an art show, so they're open for an hour. And I've spoken to people who have, said that the Granite might be interested, and you guys get involved when you have shows. So it's
you'll do well to attract new artists to the area.
Yeah.
There's the library. We had Brigitte, who is the executive director of the library and park, on a couple of months back in one of these talks, and she was talking about this. If you go into Wilcox Park, there's a cabin on the right when you walk in. They're renovating that right now to be an artist residency.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic.
So a lot of nonprofits like us, the Colonial Theater, will utilize that to bring in artists and do artist residencies. So there's a great opportunity there to bring in new artists to work in the community for weeks on end and do work and integrate them as well into this. So I think it's the start of the visual arts maybe taking off in a way that they haven't in this area. Yeah. And it's all coming at the same time, which is...
It's like a critical mass, right?
It really
we
is.
reach a tipping point.
Yeah.
I think for us as well, with the space, with our studio gallery, we're really flexible about what the space is going to be. Like, so for this summer, we invited 8 other artists to show in the gallery for the summer season, because we thought that might be really interesting for, the summer community. But we're really flexible with how we might move forward. I mean, it's with having 3 rooms, we've thought about, one of the rooms being a project space for maybe an artist who doesn't necessarily, have a huge gallery representation, but who might want to show like a small body of work to sort of test it. We're really just kind of flexible, I suppose, Yeah, we're excited.
So can you talk a little about your art and, what kind of art you're doing? And, I mean, you had an amazing show here, and we got to see you painting on site multiple times, multiple pieces over the run of that show. But can you talk a little bit about what you do as an artist?
Yeah, I mean, I'm representational painter, but I'm also a printmaker. I have my little Charles band press. I also have one. It's been neglected for the past few years, so I have to dust it off occasionally. But primarily I'm a painter. I work in oils, and just lately I've been playing around with acrylics a little bit. I tend to respond to the environment in which I live. So right now I'm, painting the coast and the ocean and the water and waves. It's sort of a meditation practice for me as well. I think any creativity sort of gets you in the zone, and it's a way to just, relax and unwind and just, I want to say, tap into the muse. I don't know, but when I lived in New York City, my work was very different. I made industrial landscapes. So it really varies, but primarily it's most recently it's landscape, although I did go to grad school while I was in New York to a specific figurative school, because prior to that I really enjoyed life drawing and I was always drawing the figure, but I don't know what happened. I came out of the graduate program for figurative art as a landscape painter. So maybe I'm a little bit contrary. I don't know.
Does the landscape here dictate a lot of your work and inspire it?
Yeah, I mean, most of the work is local. I mean, I do artist residencies that take me to Maine and other parts of the country. But right now, I pretty much stay fairly close to home. So it's the local coastal landscape. Wetlands. I like sort of weather and atmosphere and moods, and I try to sort of incorporate that into the work. I like to think that some of the work is not necessarily site specific, but it can be if you want it to be. Where's that? Where do you want it to be?
So how would you answer the question about leaving a legacy and an impact on Westerly, and what in 5 years would you like to see change or have your work have an impact on here in this town?
Oh gosh, I mean, I think I'll just be kind of grateful to still be making art and to still have a studio. I mean, I don't have like grand lofty goals to have a major impact, but I'd like to think that I can have an influence maybe on a small scale or in a way that I don't know, is received well. I mean, I think at the gallery we'd like to, bring a little more diversity in art and the visual arts, and maybe show people locally what they don't easily get to see, because we're in a small coastal regional town. We've got Providence, which is great, but we can access Boston and New York, but they're a bit of a schlep. So we'd like to bring something a little more interesting to the community, if we can. So, I mean, I'm excited. I think Westerly it's a great little town, and I love that it has culture, like Donna said, music, film, performance, the arts. I mean, what small town has all of that in a couple of mile radius? I mean, what I couldn't believe just recently was that one of my all-time British rock artists, rock, pop, indie, was playing at the United. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. It's like I moved to Westerly from New York City, and I get to see Billy Bragg in my local theatre. I can walk to the theatre. I'm like, you're kidding me. So for me, that's like, yeah, this is a really cool place to be. Really cool place
I
to
booked
live.
that show just for you.
Thank you.
You're awesome. So in closing, let's talk really briefly about this event you have coming up here that you're hosting on Sunday.
Oh, yeah. So part of what we've been doing at AIR is to, invite artists to come and do artist talks. We've had 2 at the studio itself, and then this Sunday we're doing a private screening of a documentary by the printmaker Dan Wildey. He's a painter and a printmaker. He's pretty well known in the print world. Donna was talking about solar plate as a print technique. He was one of the people that pioneered that as an environmentally friendly way of printmaking back in the 70s. He's had over 50-year career with some amazing artists as a master printmaker for them, printing editions with Willem de Kooning and Eric Fischel and a few others. But I approached Tony, who was like, yeah, great, let's do it. So we're going to be showing his documentary, which is going to be screening in the Micro Cinema on Sunday, and we'll have an artist talk afterwards. He might be bringing some of his prints to sort of show people, but there'll be a Q&A. So that I'm really excited to be able to collaborate as well with arts organisations in the area.
Yeah.
And just find creative ways to work together. I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
It's at 4:00.
4:00.
Yep. Tickets are available.
It's a ticketed event, and there are flyers on your chairs where you can just scan the QR code and purchase your tickets. Limited seating.
Yeah.
And also when you seat, you can have these really cute little iArt Westerly stickers.
See, the master branding of this thing. All right. Well, thank you, Annie, for joining us.
That's been lovely. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
And thank all of you for joining us. We'll be back again doing this the second Wednesday of next month. Guests will probably be announced in the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that. Thank you all. And this podcast will probably be out next Friday. We usually release them about 2 weeks after these, so stay tuned to that, and you can check out some of the others anywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you all.
Thanks for tuning in to the United Theater Podcast Network. If you enjoyed this episode, we encourage you to subscribe to our show so you never miss an episode. And if you could take a moment to leave a review, we'd greatly appreciate it. Your feedback helps us create content that you love. So hit that subscribe button and leave us a review, and we'll see you on the next episode.